Hello everyone, welcome to Nilanjana's exclusive English lessons. And today we are going to explore the poem A Considerable Speck written by Robert Frost. Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed a tiny speck on your paper and wondered about its journey? Robert Frost did, and he has written a fascinating poem about it. So, welcome to our exploration of a considerable speck. And here we're going to explore a lot of hidden meanings behind this insignificant speck. Okay, let's begin. Those who are new to the channel, I welcome all of you. This is Nilanjana Sarkar, and on this channel, you will find plenty of videos related to English literature. Okay, so what is this poem all about? To explain to you very simply, it's actually about a tiny insect on a piece of paper, on a manuscript. But it symbolizes the profound attention to detail that even small things, even the smallest object of this world can be important. The poem shows that even the tiniest creatures they matter. Okay, all forms of life in this world are important. And it can also make us think that how life and everything in this world, how everything is interconnected. Okay, so let's begin the poem. A speck that would have been beneath my sight on any but a paper sheet so white set off across what I had written there, and I had idly poised my pen in air to stop it with a period of ink. A speck. Now, what is a speck? A speck is actually a tiny dot. A speck that would have been beneath my sight. Beneath my sight means probably I would have missed it otherwise. On any but a paper sheet so white. However, I noticed this speck because it was there on a paper sheet which was white, a white sheet of paper, right? So if you see a speck on a white sheet of paper, initially you may miss it. But after a certain point of time, at times you will have to notice because it is visible right in front of your eyes. Set off across what I had written there. So the speaker was writing something on a sheet of paper and then he suddenly noticed this speck. Otherwise, he would have just missed it. But the speck was moving on a white sheet of paper. Set off across means a small object. It was moving across that paper. And I had idly poised my pen in air. Now, idly means without any purpose. I had just kept the pen in air. Why? Because I just wanted to stop my writing with a period of ink. He was just about to stop writing by making a period. Period means full stop. Right. So he was just about to make a full stop, and that's the reason he was idly holding the pen in air. Like, he was about to use the pen and just put a full stop over there. And that's when he noticed this speck. When something strange about it made me think this was no dust speck by my breathing blown. Initially, he thought it's just a speck, a tiny dot. It was probably some speck of dust that had come over there and it was probably blown over by his breath. But without any doubt, that's when he realized that it was something else. So, what was it? Unmistakably a living mite. So, unmistakably, initially he was under the impression it's just a tiny dot, a speck, some dust that had, come over his paper. But this is now when he realized that unmistakably, without any doubt, it was a insect. It was an insect and it was a mite. A mite is an insect, okay, a very small insect, Usually, such insects they live in plant or soil. Sometimes even they infest the grains, like rice or any other grains. Often, grains they get infested with mites. So this is basically you can find them during the monsoon at times. Like when we store our groceries, often you will see like due to the damp weather, often grains they get infested. So mite is that insect which often infest the grains and other things. So it's a very small, a very tiny insect. And this is what the poet realized, the narrator rather. And it was a living mite, it was alive. With inclinations, it could call its own. Now, the mite showed certain actions. Inclinations refers to the feelings which I could call its own. The mite had its own decision making power, and that is what enthralled the poet. It was not just a mite which was, any other dumb creature, because as you read the poem, you will realize that why the poet narrator praises the mite so much. What is it that attracted him to the mite? Okay, so here he tells that the mite had inclinations it could call its own. It showed certain actions where the poet felt that the mite had its own decision making power. It paused as with suspicion of my pen. So, what did the mite do? The mite also became aware of some presence. In this case, it is the presence of the speaker. So it paused. Why? Why did it pause? It stopped because it could feel some danger, right? Every object, every creature rather on this earth, they would like to survive. So in this case, the mite paused as with suspicion of my pen, it got scared. It became suspicious that it was under threat, it was under some kind of danger. And then came racing wildly on again to where my manuscript was not yet dry. So, initially, when it stopped running, why did it stop running? Because it was frightened of his pen. But then again, it started running wildly and came up to the place on the paper where the ink was not yet dry. Then paused again and either drank or smelt with loathing. So again, it paused because this time it had the sense of smelling something which was very unpleasant. And of course, it was the ink at this point of time. So probably it drank a little bit of ink or it smelled the ink and it was a very unpleasant smell. So with loathing, loathing means dislike. For again it turned to fly. So when it stopped and it smelled the ink, but then it was very unpleasant and it forced the mite again to fly. So these actions of the mite prompted the poet to understand that what? The mite has its own decision making powers. Whatever the mite was not liking, the mite acted accordingly. The mite was not following any herd mentality. Okay, the poet is against the herd mentality. Of course, as we progress in this poem, we will understand what is herd mentality. Herd mentality means when you follow the crowd. There's a very famous idiom, jumping on the bandwagon. What is jumping on the band? Whatever everybody is doing, you also start doing that. But the mite was very different. It had its own unique decision making power. Plainly with an intelligence I dealt. Again, see, he's praising the intelligence of the mind. So the speaker realized that the tiny insect was also intelligent. It seemed too tiny to have room for feet. So the object, this creature was a microscopic creature, very small, the tiniest of object. And that is the reason he thought that probably it does not have any feet, yet must have had a set of them complete to express how much it didn't want to die. So initially he thought that the mite probably does not have feet because it's very small. Yet he felt that probably it must have had a set of them which it used to run and escape because it did not want to die. It seemed too tiny to have room for feet. So first he thought that there's no feet, it doesn't have any. But then he realized that yes, The mite did have some feet because the way it ran showed that it didn't want to die. Every creature on this earth has a right to live. It didn't want to die. See, unknowingly, every day we kill so many insects, microscopic organisms, right? How much do we actually think about them? So, this poem actually, forces us to think, ponder, reflect on our actions in our day to day life. It ran with terror and with cunning crept. See, when there is a threat for your life, everybody will run with terror, right? So the mite also ran with terror. It was scared and with cunning crept. And cunning means it was very clever. So it was very clever and it crept. Crept means in a zigzag manner, it moved across the paper. It faltered. However, it faltered means it couldn't do it in a proper way, it stumbled. I could see it hesitate. So the speaker could see that there was some hesitation in the actions of the mite. The speaker says that the mite actually ran for its life. So this shows that every creature, they have the desire to live in whatever form it is. So the mite now ran for its life and it was creeping, faltering, going in a zigzag manner, hesitating, and trying to make us reflect that are we really supposed to kill it or are we supposed to save it? Then what happened? I could see it hesitate. Then, in the middle of the open sheet, cowered down in desperation to accept whatever I accorded it of fate. Finally, now probably the mite gives up. It surrenders to its destiny. So now in the middle of the open sheet, in the middle of the paper, the white sheet of paper, it cowers down. Cowers means it crouches downward and it recoils. It again, sits down. It crouches and sits down over there in a very hopeless manner, in a state of hopelessness. In desperation refers to that the mite finally sits down in a state of hopelessness. Why? Because now it has no other way but to accept whatever I accorded it of fate. So I over here refers to the humans. We are humans, and when it comes to something inferior in front of us, we decide their destiny. So what did the narrator do? The mite surrenders itself to its fate because it realized that now there is no other way but it has to wait, and it surrendered and was ready to accept whatever was written in its destiny. And who had written the destiny? It was the narrator. So fate is destiny. Destiny means what? Whatever is there in store for you in your life. In Hindi, we say kismat. I have none of the tenderer than thou collectivistic regimenting love with which the modern world is being swept. Now, here the poet criticizes a certain ideology, a certain thought, a certain belief which he did not like. So, what is it that he talks about? The first thing what he tells is, I have none of the tenderer than thou. Tenderer than thou means there are people who believe that if they show a lot of sentimental love, when you profess your love in a very sentimental, hypocritical manner, trying to be over compassionate, over loving, that is something that the poet detests. He doesn't have that. He tries to say that probably when he shows love, it is a very genuine and transparent form of love which he proclaims for anyone for whom he has a feeling, right? So he does not have this kind of a love, a tenderer than thou. No, I am very compassionate and very sugar coated love. He doesn't like that, and he doesn't have that. Similarly, he also does not have another thing, which is the collectivistic regimenting love. When you think about the collective good of the society rather than thinking about the individual good. During that time, this was a popular ideology, a popular belief that was being practiced. And what was the central meaning of it? That we need to think about collectively as a society. Whatever is good for the society, we need to think about that. We need to sacrifice our individual good. We need to sacrifice and forget whatever is good for us individually, our personal likes, dislikes, or personal gains, profits. No, we are supposed to forget all that. We only have to think about the collective good of life, right? So this was the ideology that was being practiced at that point of time. And that's the reason he tells in the third line, with which the modern world is being swept. So during that time, this was being practiced. So what is it called? It is called communism. Communism is a political system where the state controls everything, where importance of the group is of paramount significance instead of importance of the individual. But the poet doesn't like it, right? He criticizes this. So I don't have any of these. Neither I have this tenderer than thou love. Similarly, I don't even like this collectivistic regimenting love. And therefore, he has a different way of thinking. And he gives importance to his own genuine individual feeling. This indicates that the superficial, this kind of a regimented form of love was becoming very popular, very, very widespread in the contemporary world. Okay, so what is Strauss doing? He's actually highlighting a trend of that time where love and compassion was more like conforming to the social norms and less about your own true individual emotion. But this poor microscopic item now. So I don't have all these things. And that is the reason this poor microscopic item needs my attention. The philosophy of communism rejected the presence of God. But when the poet sees the mite, he felt that the compassion of God is allowing this creature to rest without any harm coming upon it. And that's the reason the poet did not kill the mite. Since it was nothing I knew evil of, I let it lie there till I hope it slept. So that is the reason the poet did not kill the mite, because the poet was very impressed with the individual thinking capacity of the mite, and there was nothing evil in the mite. It did not do any harm to him. So, yeah, I let it lie there, and I just let it lie till the time I realized that probably it slept. I have a mind myself, and I recognize mind when I meet with it in any guise. So the poet has a mind of its own. What does he talk about here? That he has a mind of his own and he appreciates mind again in the same way, minds which are innovative, which are active and productive. And that is the reason he did not kill the mind. Mind when I meet with it in any guise is cover. A mind where I see a mind which comes without any cover, okay, any kind of hypocrisy or any superficial thing, I appreciate such mind. No one can know how glad I am to find on any sheet the least display of mind. So the poem actually ends with these lines where the poet tells that actually he was very glad, he was very delighted to find something of even a small tiny object, but it showed the intelligence. The display of mind refers to the show of intelligence in the tiniest creature of this earth. Okay, tiniest of creature of this earth probably would be an exaggeration, but yes, what you can consider is a microscopic item, a very, very small insect which caught the poet's attention. And the reason why the poet let it live is because, first of all, a couple of reasons. Yes, we can talk about here that every creature on this earth has a right to live. We are nobody to, take anyone's life. Next is we need to have a mind which should be innovative, productive, and imaginative. A mind which is dull, incapable of thinking anything creatively, is a mind of no use, right? So, therefore, when he saw this thing in the mind, the poet was really impressed. Okay, so this is the theme of the poem. If you get a question like what is the theme, you will talk about the importance of mind, how the mind is important, and how it needs to be imaginative and creative. Because the poet actually not just saw the mind, the poet also observed it very carefully. When the poet observed the actions of the mind, that's when he realized that What a beautiful display of actions. The way the mite tried to escape, the way the mite tried to, understand the situation. And finally, when the mite had no other option but just to surrender itself to its own fate. And who would decide the fate? Of course, we the humans. So therefore, whenever we decide, when we take these kind of decisions, you need to be a little careful, and you need to be a little, I would say, responsible. I think that's the correct word, because again, mindlessly don't kill anything. Give it a thought, and let every creature on this earth live a life of freedom. Okay, that's all. It's a very small poem, but very significant, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Yes, and those who have enjoyed it, those who feel it's good enough, please subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Okay, thank you so much and have a beautiful day ahead.